Here we have our virtual machine appliance file ready to import. A virtual machine appliance file is just a virtual disk and all the configuration required to build a virtual machine using that virtual disk image. If we double click on the .ova file, VirtualBox software will open, come to the front, and greet us with the Import Virtual Appliance dialog. And we can see here that the name of the VM will be COMP-10024. It'll be a Red Hat VM with 1 CPU and a gig of RAM. Import. Now we wait patiently. Depending on the system that you're using, it could take anywhere from 30 seconds to a few minutes to import this VM. It's worthwhile noting that when we import the VM, we're actually copying the information out of the .ova file, and the .ova file remains unchanged. This is important because it means if we do anything to mess up our virtual machine, we can always remove the virtual machine and reload it from the .ova file. We have our virtual machine all loaded and configured, ready to run. Here we are, ready to log into our virtual machine. Before we log in, let's take a quick look around and see what information is being presented to us and by whom is being presented. If we look at this panel across the bottom, we'll notice a series of icons that are presented by the VirtualBox software. And these are essentially the little blinking lights on the front of our virtual computer. And they tell us what's going on with the computer and let us also do a little bit of configuration. For example, the hard disk, little stacked up platters there, that occasionally beeps red or blinks red, is telling us that there's virtual hard disk activity going on. Moving up from the VirtualBox icons, we have the login screen for CentOS, the Linux system that we'll be using. And I want to draw your attention to a couple things on this screen. First of all, the little power button in the lower right-hand corner. If we have the virtual machine up and we want to shut it down without logging on, we click on the little power button. We don't want to do that right now. We want to log in, and we want to log in as Bob. So let's click on Bob to log in as Bob. Bob's password, like everybody's password in this very unsecure environment, is user pass. And here we have Bob's desktop. Looks kind of familiar. One of the things that looks really familiar is the Firefox logo. What do you know? Firefox is installed and eLearn is the default homepage. If we see the eLearn homepage, then we know that network connectivity is good for this virtual machine. We don't need to worry about having network connectivity in the virtual machine until we get to the very end of the course and we need to submit some scripts. Linux is all about the command line, so I need a command line. To get a command line, I want to open up a virtual terminal window where I can type commands. And I find that under the Applications menu. Applications, System Tools, Terminal. And there's my terminal window. Let's zoom in and look at just the terminal window for now. In this terminal window, I can type commands and the computer will execute them. A very simple command is the date command. Without any arguments, date tells us the current date and time. If my screen gets a little busy, I can clear the screen. A very important trick to know is Control-C. Control-C sends the interrupt signal to whatever program is running. An interrupt, as you might guess, tells the program to interrupt what it's doing and usually to terminate. If I run a command like sleep 2000, that's going to sleep for over half an hour before coming back. I'm a little impatient. I don't want to wait half an hour, so I want to interrupt that command by typing Control-C. C. If I type Control C at the input prompt, I simply interrupt my input. Control C by itself isn't all that interesting, but if I type something like oops, I can hit Control C to interrupt that input. If I've typed dates instead of date, I can use the backspace key here. I can also use the up arrow key to recall the previous commands that I have typed. And Control C. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Now to put away our toys, we're going to select Shutdown from the System menu, which will cleanly shut down the system, and leave it ready for next time.